It's a new year, which means new resolutions and new players. It's a very exciting time for a lot of people. Today we are talking the best buy in the $500 price range for keyboards and digital pianos. We've got two amazing products, the Yamaha P45 and the Korg B2.
Hi, this is Ted with Alamo Music Center in downtown San Antonio, Texas.
And I'm Patrick Marr. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channels, check out our other videos, sign up for notifications, like our videos, leave us comments. We appreciate your support and we love to interact with you. Ted, very exciting for a lot of people. Starting a new instrument can be, it can be nerve-wracking and you can feel like you might make the wrong decision because a new instrument is not a cheap endeavor. It can be very expensive, and a lot of times people will jump over this category and buy an acoustic instrument or buy an in-home digital, and those are usually pretty dedicated people who are ready to go, and so those those are great purchases. But a lot of times people want to stay in a budget, and today we picked one of the most attractive budgets that we experience here at our store and online. It's the budget where you can start getting that that weighted action 88 keys. It gets closer and closer to a real instrument.
It's I've always considered that when people come in and they have a budget set, sometimes you try to ask for a budget, like what's your budget? You want to do this, you want to do that. And I often found that a lot of times their mentality toward taking on the challenge is kind of equal to their budget. Mm-hmm. In other words, like, well, I'm kind of interested in learning piano, but I don't want to spend a lot of money. I want to see how it goes first. And so that's kind of, whether it's for a child or an adult. If it's for an adult and they come in with that, it's like, well, how much did you really look at and what do you really want to get, and have you been reading and studying online? So a lot of times people come and say, hey, look, I've been told to get a $300 acoustic piano, a little spin it off of Craigslist and then tune it up and play it and do that for a year. And if you're still motivated, then go get something that costs a little bit more money. That's okay if someone wants to do that. But at the same time, is that really how you want to agree to challenge? Like, for instance, we're going to go down to Antarctica and survive. Okay, what's the cheapest sleeping bag I can get? What's the least amount of food I can take?
Yeah.
And it's almost like if it were a survival thing, because you're not going to survive the challenge of getting through what it really takes to learn and to take down some kind of, at least a small part, mastery of an instrument by playing on inefficient gear.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also compare it to, we use this comparison sometimes. It's like trying to learn how to golf either on with plastic clubs or clubs from the 60s, or learn to ride a bicycle and you have a bicycle from the 60s and the chain's rusty and it's like, you change the chain and then get the tires fixed and then,
Right.
realign everything and sometimes it can all work out and be great, but other times you're stuck with something that is no fun to use and really is counterproductive to learning something.
Right.
And so we always kind of, if you're in this price range of 500, both these instruments in front of us are $549 at the time of making this video. But if you're in this price range of a couple $100, we usually try to encourage people, if they're in that $300 to $400, maybe stretch a little bit further to this $500 to $600 range, because the offering is just so much better at this price point. And there are a couple other manufacturers that do make, or they claim to make, weighted 88 keys. But we chose two of our favorites today and what we would consider either best value or best buy, the best money that you could probably spend in this category. And it's interesting because the P45 came out, we were looking at this, I think it's
a number of years ago. I think it was 16 or 2017.
Yeah, 2016, 2017. It replaced the very popular P35. And if you think about Yamaha, a very big, large corporation that makes their top of their line, the CFX, that cost over $200,000. You look at the P45, it's going to come in at $549 and really offers a lot, and tries to live on with the same spirit of how they create these really expensive instruments. And so they try to give you as much as you can at this price point. It's interesting that it's still such a bestseller, and probably because of the name Yamaha. and because of the known quality of it. But once you start reading the specs, it's kind of interesting to compare it to something like the Korg B2, which we brought out today. Same price point, so we were like, these are, you know, as close. People compare things with dollars a lot, and so these are as close to equal as money can get.
And dollar goes, but this is a much younger keyboard, and so what you're getting is what this is on the Yamaha. The P45 is almost like a 4 or 5 year old inflated price on this product.
Yeah.
Whereas this one here, I think, came out in 2019, so it's like a 2.5 year old product.
Yeah,
and
they
it's
announced it
priced the same way, so you get a little bit more technology based. When you consider that as time goes on, you get more for your dollar.
Yeah. So in 2019, I think we started seeing shipments really in like 2020. It was really a cool product though. The B2, a couple more voices. So we'll do quick kind of just specs, but both are 25 pounds. They're 25 and some change. So same weight. 12 voices on the B2, 10 voices on I reversed that. 12 voices on the P45, 10 voices on the B2. Both of them have graded weighted actions, which means it's heavier in the bass section. As you move up towards the top, it's going to be a lighter action, emulating a grand piano, and the hammers being lighter as you go up the piano. Different piano samples on them, so we will be demoing them and kind of just, you know, listening to what they sound like. So that's going to be probably the biggest difference in the two. But there's also a big polyphony difference. And so do you want to explain polyphony?
Yeah, polyphony is the number of notes that are sounded at any one time, with either keys being depressed or the sustain pedal still continuing the sound of keys that were already played. So I believe the polyphony on the Yamaha P45 is 64 notes, which means you can have a total of 64 notes sounding at the same time. However, when you split that into, like your headphones, left and right, into a signal, it really takes half of each to make one side of the sound. So you really only get like a 32 note extension.
If you're running stereo out.
If you're running stereo out, or if you're listening to it in stereo, you're really only going to have access to about 32 notes sounding at the same time. Whether your sustain pedal is on and you went all the way up and down, you're still only going to get 32 of them. There's going to be dropout. As opposed to the Korg B2 has 120.
Yeah.
K in terms of its polyphony, which means what this one lists as total polyphony, you get per channel on this one if you're running in stereo. So you're going to have more sound coming out of the B2 because it's going to have more polyphony, assuming that you run an arpeggio or a scalar of notes. Those notes should sustain closer to what a real acoustic piano does without any dropout. But the other point I wanted to make, besides all this is really important because we're considering, like, you know, new year, new resolutions and new players. The main thing is that your confidence as a new player or a returning player is that you have a great instrument in either one of these things. You should have full confidence that the only thing you need to do with these two instruments is learn how to play them. There isn't anything that's going to be quirky about it unless you set it up where the ergonomics are a little tricky.
Yeah.
And I always recommend setting them on a proper stand and a bench and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you want to be able to have it where you're not reaching up or reaching down.
You don't want this and you don't want this in your action. You kind of want it level, but you want your arm also to be like you're sitting at a piano.
Yeah, so let's take a listen to these, and then we'll talk about a couple more of the differences. But we'll take a listen, hear the samples, and then kind of talk about, you know, last minute changes that are between the two, and maybe we'll help you choose which one might be right for you.
Patrick, I don't know about you, but I noticed that the Korg had a little bit heavier of an action, and I kind of tend to like that. It's only because I play harder, but I think for a beginner, either one of these things are going to suffice. In fact, more people may like the P45 action.
Yeah, and what I noticed was it's a little bit louder when you're in the room. So of course, when we're running this right now, we're running it directly into our recording software, so we're running off the board. But when you hear it, listen in the room, it's a much louder, more present instrument, the B2, because it is 15 watts per side, so a total of 30 watts of power on the speakers. The Yamaha is 6 watts per side, so 12 watts total. So you just get a little bit more of that oomph. Yeah, the oomph, and it's very pleasant. What I do love about both these instruments, and one of the reasons we encourage this price point and the versatility of these, especially if you have young kids learning, is the USB to host. And so what that's seems like a fancy line item on a spec sheet, but really what you can do with these is transform these into MIDI devices. And that can be very complicated for some people. Some people are like, oh, that's easy, I understand what that is. But basically it turns it into a controller that can use apps on like an iPad or on a computer, can be very useful in recording, whether you have whatever digital audio workstation that you have. It basically just makes it a much more versatile instrument, so you're not limited to 10 to 12 voices. You really kind of unlock the potential of turning this into whatever instrument you want.
The other thing is that part of the USB to host is that there are more and more, it seems every single day, more applications of software on how to teach you how to play piano. So they're starting to get advertised more on media and even on TV. And so when you connect, what that does is it takes what you're doing from here along with the teaching application, and it monitors your inputs and it corrects you and tells you what you're doing right and wrong.
Yeah, and Korg actually has a little bit of a software bundle that comes with the B2, where they say, here, this is our Korg software, and again, it shows you little basic passages of playing on the treble clef, and you play along, and it's reading. It does require buying like an extra cable. These are not wireless. You don't get Bluetooth until you spend a little bit more on either Korg product or a Yamaha product. They do introduce Bluetooth later on, but yeah, just really loaded keyboards. It very minimum. There's not a lot of buttons and things like that, but loaded in the fact that you get the things you need as a beginner pianist, as someone who's wanting to start up. It's not going to be confusing. It's going to be, hey, power button, this is my piano sample, I'm ready to go. So really just excellent products in this $500 range, and definitely has our stamp of approval. If you have any questions, or if you've owned one of these two products before, please leave some comments and say, hey, this is what's great about this. This is what you should be looking out for. But this is an exciting time if you're a new player. Getting a new instrument can be some of the best years of your life. And so hopefully you choose one and say, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start practicing, because that's really where you start having a lot of fun. And it's it can be.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge, and it's
a fun challenge.
And it can be, taking the initial investment can be scary, but once you do it, super rewarding, and you'll have a lot of fun. So thank you guys for watching. This is Ted Barcelou. I'm Patrick Marr with Alamo Music Center. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. Thank you for watching.